What up, Jay Thompson? Happy Thursday. Rudini, happy Thursday. Hope y'all are doing well. Even though I'm only looking at the sun out of the corner of my eye, I'm still getting blinded. Hello to Jeff. Happy Thursday. Oh yeah, I forgot about the football game tonight. What's your prediction for that game, Jay? Hello to Frenchie. I know go Pack go, but what's your prediction? I need a score. 41-17. Whoa. You got booted out of my live stream ear. I didn't do it. Welcome back. Hello to Ken C. We to Christians. Hello to BC. Matty Ice. All right, so since Jay started talking about sports, this is the portion of my walk where I talk about some sports. All right. Usually I have a card with me. Like if it's somebody's birthday, I'll have a card. I got two birthdays today, and both of these have passed away. So, but they're two of the greatest coaches of all time. All right, today is Bear Bryant's birthday, one of the greatest college football coaches of all time. And today is also Tom Landry's birthday, the coach of the Cowboys back in the day. So, one of the greatest NFL coaches of all time. All right, so I'm not asking who. I'm not going to ask you who do you think is the greatest coach of all time is, but I will ask you who is your favorite coach of all time, and you can tell me in different sports. It don't matter the sport. Just throw out your favorite coach of all time in each sport if you got a answer or just one, whatever. Just curious to hear. BC says Fedora Brothers. Don Shula. Don Shula was great. His son, Mike Shula, was the coach at Alabama for a while. Happy birthday to Jeff's uncle. Hello to Fabian. Hello to Biz. I done missed all kind of people coming up in here. Hello, Biz. Hope everybody's doing well on this Thursday. Hello to Judy. Hello to the KM Mac Project. Sock, I appreciate you stopping by. Hope you're doing well. I got to get back to watching your video, Sock. I started it and then something came up and I forgot what came up, but I stopped. But I know you was gonna show your garden or something. So I got to get to be continued on that one. Hello to Charles Young. And also, Sock, I like seeing your hummingbirds. That was cool. I was reading an article, I think it was today, about hummingbirds migrating down to Mexico. It's pretty interesting. Matty I says Larry Brown, Tony Dungy. I like Tony Dungy. Bob Knight, Joe Madden. I like that. Maddie's throwing out all kind of answers. Yeah, that's what the article was pretty much talking about, the how many of them there are right now migrating. Hello to Hodges. Appreciate the like. Hello to Aries World, who is driving and listening. Undrafted player says favorite all-time coach Jimmy Dugan from a league of their own. Well, that's cool. Hodges is getting a lot of hummingbirds. BC's agreeing with Joe Madden. I thought y'all was talking about John Madden at first, but I know who Joe Madden is as well. So that was pretty much my sports section of the newspaper today. Was talking about coaches, since today is Bear Bryant and Tom Landry's birthday. I think if Tom Landry was still living, he'd be like 101, and Bear Bryant would be like 112. So, but they're no longer with us, but their memory lives on. So that was my sports topic. Francona helped break the curse. Bobby Cox is a great manager. I enjoyed watching him manage. I always enjoy seeing Bobby Cox, and then Leo Mazzoni to his, I think it was usually to his right, but Leo Mazzoni be rocking. He'd be rocking in the dugout. Hello to Daisy May. Everybody feel free to talk about their favorite coach, favorite manager, favorite. That's what my sports topic for today is. Who's your favorite coach, manager, etc. I know Daisy May's a Buffalo Bills fan. So her favorite might be Marv Levy. I'm thinking of Marv Levy, maybe. I remember him from the 80s. Tom Osborne, there's a good answer from Aries World. Cran, hello to Cran, happy Thursday. Ask, would I say I'm a Hulkamaniac? I'm not a Hulkamaniac. I didn't really get big into wrestling. But I did watch some of it. My granddad was a big wrestling fan, so I did watch some of it. But Phil Jackson, there's a good answer. Someone did just fire a gun, and I thought I got hit. It sounded pretty close. I don't know where it came from. I'd probably say my favorite wrestler. I liked Hulk Hogan. Probably my favorite. I like to watch probably Andre the Giant. Yeah, it was a gunshot. Yeah, Red Auerbach was awesome. Which I've liked a lot of the Celtics coaches through the years. I like K.C. Jones. Hello to baby Elizabeth. Not that KC, Calvin. Wrong KC. Happy day to SHQ. Yeah, it's good to laugh for sure. Laughter is good medicine. Cause for the last 2 days, I ain't gonna say I've been like depressed or down, but another thing I was gonna talk about today on my walk is sighing, SIGHING, because of what happened yesterday, and then just thinking about today and what today means. I would have to say I've done a lot of sighing. And I've probably done more sighing in like the last 3 years than I have in the rest of my life combined. Just a lot of things that's been bothering me. But just thinking about, like I said yesterday, what's going on in our country, and then what happened, 24 years ago today. A lot of sighing going on. Because, you get to thinking about, and I do, things that just aren't supposed to happen. And sighing is right now I'm using verbal communication to y'all. But, we also have our nonverbal communication. And I would put sighing under that. Sighing, you don't really say nothing, but you just take in this deep breath and you let out a deep breath. And, I've been doing a lot of that because just things aren't like they're supposed to be. I done missed the sunset again, guys. But once I get to a stopping point here, I got a few verses to read where Jesus in the Bible sighed, and talk about that a little bit. There was a couple of things that caused Jesus to sigh, so I was thinking about that as well. Yeah, way too much hate. That's right, Kenzie. Which any hate is too much hate. Nobody's supposed to hate anybody. It's the way it's supposed to be. We are supposed to hate things, but we're not supposed to hate people. And that's, I don't know if y'all remember the Cliff Notes. The little yellow and black books that, which now hindsight looking back, hindsight 2020, I consider it like Cliff Notes cheating, right? You're too lazy as a kid to read a book that your teacher signed, so you look at the Cliff Notes. You get the short version of it. And I don't think we're supposed to cheat when it comes to reading the Bible either. I think we're supposed to read it all. But if there was a Cliff Notes of the Bible, just to shorten down what it says, just a summary of God's Word is love God and love each other. That's the summary of the whole Bible. Love God and love each other, and we're failing as a whole, as people, when it comes to loving God and loving each other. And that's one of the things that I've been sighing about a lot. And like what BC's saying there, we can't control what's going on as far as what other people do, but we can control what we do and hopefully influence somebody else that maybe at one time hated somebody else. Look at your life and say, hey, he's getting by without hating. I can too. That's one of my main, I guess, sayings I like to say is you can't control how people treat you, but you can control how you treat people. And I haven't perfected the art. When I say that, I haven't perfected the art of treating people 100% like I should. But hopefully, as I go through this life, I'm getting better at it. You know. Um, but my scripture I was going to read, let's see, it's in the book of Mark. I had a couple examples of Jesus sighing in the New Testament in Mark chapter, I think it was 7. Let me see if I can find it. I lost my spot. Hello to Venture America, Troy. I appreciate you stopping by. I appreciate your honesty. You know, Maddie, you said you've been an emotional wreck and you hate this. And this is, it's good to talk about stuff. And I believe the guy that passed away yesterday, that was one of his main points is the importance of, communication. Um, that not talking about stuff causes more division than talking about stuff. Hello to Three Good Nerds. Justin, appreciate you stopping by. Hello to Trevor Norton. But I appreciate you being honest, Maddie. Emotional wreck. That's the way I feel about it too. A lot of sighing, like I said, a lot of sighing going on. A lot of deep breaths, inhale, exhale, just not talking, but just, very bothersome. Um, not. I'm gonna quote a Ken C. I'm gonna quote a Rolling Stones lyric and say, "You're not the only one with mixed emotions." Because I think I know what you're talking about. You know, mixed emotions. Well, maybe I don't, but I have some mixed emotions as well. But in Mark chapter 7, verse 31, it said, "And again, departing from the coast of Tyre and Sidon, he came into the Sea of Galilee, and the he being Jesus, through the midst of the coast of Decapolis." Decapolis means 10 cities. "And they bring unto him," so the crowd brought unto Jesus somebody. And it says, "one that was deaf." So you got people concerned about another person. That's what I'm talking about, loving God, loving each other. These people was concerned about this guy that couldn't hear. They couldn't do nothing about it, but they brought this person to the one that could do something about it. They cared, and we got to have more care in this world that we're living in. You know, I think there's a lot of apathy in this world that, hey, I don't care. I don't care. I might care about myself, but that's it. But man, if more people seen more people caring, maybe to get contagious because we need more caring in this world. But they bring unto him one that was deaf and had an impediment in his speech, so he couldn't hear it all, and he could talk, but he couldn't talk well. He had a speech impediment, and they beseech him, talking about Jesus. They begged him to put his hand upon him. In other words, do something about this problem that this person has. Sorry about that, Jeff. That's beyond my control. I'm not kicking anyone out. And I love you too, Aries World. I appreciate you. All right, so it says he took him, talking about Jesus, took him aside from the multitude. So he separated this person from the crowd and put his fingers into his ears, and he spit and touched his tongue. And there may be people that can break that down more than the whys of why Jesus done that. When I don't know about something, I'm not going to talk about it. But I know Jesus done it for a reason, and I can see the end result. But verse 34 is what I wanted to key in on. Mark chapter 7, verse 34. It says, I've been thinking about with all this sighing that I've been doing, what do I do? I, I'm going to sigh, but what else can I do? In the, verse 34 says, and looking up to heaven. I think that's a good answer to what do you do. We all sigh. You have reasons you sigh. I sigh a lot of different reasons. Like I said, especially these past 3 years. But I sigh, but what do I do when I sigh? And Jesus gives us an example here. It says, and looking up to heaven, he sighed. Looking up to heaven, he sighed. Not sighing because of God. He ain't looking up to heaven and sighing because of God. He's looking down here and sighing. Something down here is causing the sighing. And the same is true with me. That I've never sighed looking up to God. I look up to God because I do sigh. Yeah, I sigh a lot too. And especially, like I said, even more so, especially the last 3 years, probably more the last 3 years combined than the rest of my life combined. But I'm glad I have answers. I'm glad that I don't just have to scratch my head and, you know, don't know what I can do. Look up. Looking up to heaven, he sighed and saith unto him. Jesus said something to this man who couldn't hear and had a speech impediment. And I love that, I like the King James Version Bible, but this particular verse, it mentions the language of what Jesus said. It says, he says, EPHPHATHA, Ephatha, and then it gives us the interpretation of what he said. Ephatha, that is, be opened. Be opened. And I got to thinking about that as well. I've talked about this before as well. What in my life needs to be opened? There's some things in my life I need God to open, But the reason I believe Jesus sighed here for this guy is because it wasn't supposed to be like that. This guy wasn't supposed to not be able to hear and not be able to talk right. But because of sin causes stuff such as that. That's where every problem in the world that you and I face is all points back to one thing. It don't point back to God. He created a perfect world. But everything that's problematic in this world points back to sin and the sinful nature in the heart that's desperately wicked, that needs to look up to the God that is good and don't make mistakes. We're the ones that makes mistakes. And anytime we choose hatred towards somebody, that's a mistake. Anytime we choose to do something that hurts somebody else, that's a mistake. But he looked up and he sighed and he said, Ephatha, that is, be opened. And the Bible says, hello to Larry Sings. Thank you for stopping by. I'm reading, so I'm not seeing all the chat. But it says straightway. And straightway in the Bible means immediately. Straightway or immediately, his ears were open and the string of his tongue was loosed and he spake plain. So that's what it says, he spake plain. And that's what I got to thinking about. Things that aren't what they're supposed to be. This guy's language, his communication wasn't what it was supposed to be, and Jesus turned it into plain. We've all got issues in our life where something's just not plain. Something's just not right. And we look up to heaven and we sigh and say, God, it's just not right. Can you do something about it? Hello to Norma. Appreciate you stopping by. Hello. Straightway his ears were open, and the string of his tongue was loosed, and he spake plain, and he charged them that they should tell no man, but the more he charged them, so much the more a great deal they published it, and were beyond. And this, I love this verse too, the last verse of Mark chapter 7. And we're beyond measure astonished. Astonished is just a big word to me. When I think of astonished, I don't use the word astonished. Y'all know I love my palindromes. So my word for astonished that I use is wow. Yeah, y'all go check out Robert Springs' channel. He's got a post of him and his granddaughter, baby Elizabeth. I'm all about family. That's a great family shot that Robert took with his granddaughter. So y'all Go check him out. But I have a good Thursday remainder, Pops. I appreciate you stopping by. I just seen a Reggie Sanders card. I was looking for some cards to carry with me, but I didn't come across any. But I did see a Reggie Sanders card. But the last verse of Mark chapter 7, my palindrome word is wow for astonish. Wow. You know, how many times do we say wow? I say wow a lot. You know, unbelievable. Wow. Amazing. You know, and after they seen Jesus do what he did to this guy that couldn't hear and had a speech impediment, says we're beyond measure astonished, saying he hath done all things well. And that's the truth of Jesus. That's the truth of God. He does everything well. We don't. You know, you may have some things you do well, and we all got our strengths. Every one of us have got things we do well, but we also got things that we don't do so well. And that's where the room for improvement is. But Jesus, God, he does all things well. And that's why they were wowed. But you and I need to look up when we're sighing, look up to the God that does all things well. And we're beyond measure astonished, saying, he hath done all things well. He maketh both the deaf to hear and the dumb to speak. And then in the very next chapter, I done closed my Bible. I'll just kind of talk about what was going on. But there were some people that were religious, but they didn't have a relationship with God, with Jesus, called the Pharisees. And they wanted a sign from Jesus. And there's still people like that today. They want signs from God. Give me a sign. But God wants you to have faith. He wants you to believe without seeing signs. And that was another thing that Jesus sighed about. Whenever they didn't show faith, the Pharisees didn't show faith, but instead was wanting a sign. Jesus sighed about that. So 2 times in back-to-back chapters of Mark, it shows Jesus sighing. And it shows us why he sighed. You know, that things weren't what they're supposed to be in this man's life. He couldn't hear, he couldn't talk right. And then these unbelieving people that wanted a sign. He wanted them to have faith. And the same is true with me and you. I wonder how many people he's looking down at and still sign today, because he wants us all to have faith. Because the Bible says without faith it is impossible to please God. So he's looking down here for faith in me and in you and in the world, everybody. But I wonder how much sighing he's still doing. But I just wanted to encourage somebody today, you know that you're not alone. Every time you sigh, you're not alone. First and foremost, Jesus shows us in the Bible that he sighed. But I know that there's a lot of things going on in this world that's not what it's supposed to be. And there's things, what do I do about that? There's things, I can't control what's going on in the world, but I can look up to heaven and just like Jesus did, I can pray about things. And that's what he tells us to do. He told us to pray, our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So we know that God's will is not be, every time there's a murder, every time one person hurts another person, we know God's will is not being done on earth as it is in heaven, because in heaven, his perfect will is being done. Where all the mistakes are at is down here where we've messed things up. But I'm thankful that he shows us how we can make things right, and I love that. Hello to Mary's Gigs. I appreciate you stopping by. Hope everybody's had a great Thursday. And I've mentioned I've been doing a lot of sighing today, but that don't change the fact that today is still a good day because God made today. The psalmist says, this is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. So every day's a good day, but there's just things during the day that happen that aren't good. And everything that happens during the day that's not good does not reflect of who God is. It reflects of who we are as people, that we're fallen people that make bad choices. But with God's guidance, and this is where I get back to the coach. I started out by talking about coaches or managers, people that are in leadership positions. You know, there's been, down through the history of sports, there's been good coaches and bad coaches. But when it comes to God, He's always going to be a good coach that we can lean on for leadership. But every time that we make a bad choice, it's not His fault; it's ours. We went away from what He's already said. And hello to Joanne Solis. I was just talking about palindromes, and Joanne comes in. Solace, spelled backwards, is solace. But I hope you're having a great evening. Hello to Jess Roy Delivery. I hope you're doing well. Aries World says wow, which spelled backwards is wow, since we're talking about palindromes. But basically, what was on my heart today, Joanne, since you're just getting here, anybody else is just getting here, I'm just basically talking about things that make us sigh. We all sigh, probably some more than others at different times for different reasons. But what do you do after you sigh? And or what do you do with your sighs? And I just looked at Jesus' example, and like I said in Mark, the book of Mark, where Jesus sighed. A guy had a speech impediment; he couldn't hear. Jesus sighs. He looks up to heaven, and then he touches this man and he heals him. And I think it's just a picture of things just aren't what they're supposed to be. That caused Jesus to sigh, and the same thing causes us to sigh. When you hear of things that aren't supposed to be like that, it just causes you to sigh. Well, what do I do about that? I talk to the God that can do something about it. Yeah, let's not bring up the past, Just Roy. That's another probably common flaw of us as humans. We bring up the past too much. We hold on to grudges instead of working towards reconciliation, uh, working toward peace, working toward getting along. We hold on to the past instead of maybe that's why some people are sighing because they're still looking in the past. But there's not going to be a solution by looking back. I find it's good to look back for certain things that can be good, you know, but a lot of time. Oh, I know, Roy. I'm just thinking about things in general. I wasn't pointing fingers at anybody. But I just want everybody to know today that next time you sigh, I mean, I hope you don't. It'd be great if you didn't sigh no more the rest of your life. But in this fallen world, it's probably going to happen, and I just want you to know that you're not alone in your sighs. Not Size, but Sighs, your sighs like that. That everybody's going through something, and everybody has something that causes them to sigh. But there is a remedy. Jesus, he's our example. He shows us how to do things. And I guess that's our probably our main problem as a society as a whole is we don't look to the greatest example that there's ever been and learn from him, listen to him, and learn from him. That was another thing I was going to talk about. All right, Jesus to this person that had the speech impediment and he couldn't hear. Jesus says, "Ephphatha," which means be open. The Bible tells us the interpretation of what ephphatha means. And I wrote down some stuff, just prayers for things to be open. Jesus Jesus said for this man's ears to be open and his tongue to be loosed, but be open. He said for his ears to be open, and his ears was open. But I was just thinking about things in our lives that needs opening. Maybe not necessarily yours, or maybe it does apply to you. But I think sometimes our hands need to be open. I think we living in a selfish world, a very unsharing. I ain't saying, I know there's a lot of sharing people. I see it, but I'm talking about as a whole. We're very selfish as a whole. So, could pray for open hands, and that could take so many directions with open hands to help somebody, with your strength, open your hands and give them a hand that way. Another way, open your hands, give a hand is, applaud somebody that does something. Instead of being jealous about it, cheer them on and say, "Hey, you done a good job," and clap. We have high fives. Open your hand and give somebody a high five when they've done something good. That don't just have to happen on the basketball court. That can happen in just everyday life. That you reward somebody by just acknowledging that they've done something good. But also, I'm also thinking about, you know, benevolence or charity. Open your hand that way. Gives to the poor, alms giving. But we could pray, God, open my hands. You know, my phone is acting up. Did I just get kicked out of my own? um, is anybody out there? Can you hear me now? Put one in the chat if you're still out there. Okay, thank y'all. So, God, open my hands for benevolence or open my hands to encourage somebody. Um, in whatever ways that I got my hands closed for selfish reasons, God, open my hands. Open my eyes. Open my eyes. Sometimes we can be blinded to the things of God. Sometimes we don't stop long enough to look at His creation. Or, there's just so many ways we can pray that He'd open our eyes. I think about the Good Samaritan. There was a guy that he was beat up, left for dead, robbed. He was about dead, and three different people seen him. Three different people seen this guy in his almost dead condition, but only one done something about it. So only one really had his eyes open to a need. The other two were blinded to the need because they had something that they felt like was more important. And we can be like that. But God, open my eyes to see help me to see things as you see it. Because, how many times have I ever said, this is how I see it? This is the way I see it. But I don't need to see things the way I see it. I need to see the things the way God sees it. All right, Aries, you have a good volleyball match. Be easy on the opposition. Don't spike it on them too hard. But I remember the time that my first airplane ride, right? All I had ever known was life down here, walking on this earth, on the ground. The highest I ever got, maybe was climbing some stairs, climbing a tree. I didn't get very far off the ground for the most part. But then there came the time I took my first airplane ride. And I got up above the clouds and I looked down at this tiny world. And man, it changed my whole perspective on everything. And I think about God, open my eyes to look down like you do, to see people like you see them. It ain't about how I see things, God. It's about how you see them. So I think so often we look at things selfishly through our own eyes instead of through the lens of God. Another prayer, open my ears. How many times you told somebody something, but you realized that they just weren't listening. They wasn't interested in what you were saying. And sometimes we can be like that with God. That the Bible, it was a book that was once spoken. It was spoken in the past for sure, 100%. But does it still speak today? Does God's word still speak today? Yes, God's just as much speaking today as He ever has. It's just a matter of, Do I have open ears to receive what he has to say? So God, open my ears for hearing. Help me to hear your word. Because God's still speaking today. He didn't just speak to the people during Moses' day or David's day or while Jesus walked the earth. He's speaking right now in the year 2025, but it's just a matter of am I listening or are you listening? Hello to Rocky Mountain Rowdy. Hope you're doing well. Happy Thursday. I like that, Aries, about the high fives. That's cool. So God, open my hands for benevolence. God, open my eyes for vision. And I'm talking about spiritual vision. I ain't talking about, when you wake up first thing in the morning, your 20/20 vision or whatever eyesight you have. I'm talking about God, help me to see things like you see them. God, open my ears that I might hear your word. And next, God, open my lips. God, open my mouth. In the book of Ecclesiastes, it talks about there's a time to speak and there's a time to be quiet. And like Joanne just said, something about being quiet. There's a time to be quiet, to just sit there and listen to God. Be still and know that he is God. But there's also a time that you take what God speaks to you and you share it. You share what God is doing in your life. You share how God's been good to you today. Somebody needs to hear that. Somebody out there don't think God is good. They don't know how good he is, but that's when the time, to share, open our mouths. So there's definitely a time to be quiet. And that's another thing to pray about. God, whenever it's time for me to be quiet, help me to be quiet. And when there's a time that I need to speak, let me speak. And the wisdom to know the difference between the two. But God, open my lips for a testimony. Another thing I like about the book of Daniel, they told Daniel he couldn't pray to his God. Well, what did Daniel do? He opened the windows for prayer. And you've been in your vehicle before, and maybe, you go to the drive-through. Imagine going to the drive-through and telling the person that you wanted a hamburger and your window was still up. There's a communication breakdown there. Or you drive on up to pay and you leave the window up. There's a communication breakdown because the window's still up. And, we need to pray for windows to be open for prayer. God, how is my prayer life? You'll never learn about God if you don't talk to him and you don't allow him to talk to you. That's how we learn about God, about who he is, about, all his different names, about what he likes, about what he don't like, about who he wants you to be. So God, open my windows for prayer. And this may be the very first one I should have said if you've never asked Jesus into your life, into your heart. This is probably the most important one. God, open my heart for your message. God, open my heart for your message, for your word. God, speak to me. And may I respond in a way that's pleasing unto you. Back to what I said about the Pharisees, that they wanted a sign from Jesus, and he just wanted faith from them. The same is true with me and you. He's wanting us to have faith. God, open my heart for your word, your message. And then, I believe the Bible is a story of where did I come from? Why am I here? And then where am I going? But the middle one, why am I here? Why are you here? Why am I here? Why am I on God's green earth? Why did he put me here in what is today? September the 11th. I've already been talking about that. He put me here September the 11th, 2025 for a reason. And just as he is all the other days of my life, for a purpose. And that purpose is to serve him. Well, you say, well, how do you serve God? Because God don't need no help. God don't need service. We need God, but he don't need us. He loves us. But he was living way before we ever came along. He don't need us, but he chose us and he loves us. And I ain't making light of who we are, but I'm saying he don't need help, but we need to help each other. Not hurt each other, and that's what's been causing me to sigh a lot. Every time I know when somebody's hurting somebody else, it causes me to sigh. Whenever I know I've hurt somebody else, it causes me to sigh. It causes God to sigh. Because the things aren't the way they're supposed to be when we're hurting each other. But when we're helping each other, that's what it's all about. So God opened my door for service. So back to what Ken C said earlier, and I'm not sure what he was talking about with mixed emotions. But I think I may know what he was talking about, but my mixed emotions for today, I'm super sad and like I said, sighing because of what's been going on yesterday and what went on 24 years ago and some other things. But the good side is I'm thankful for the service. 24 years ago today, I had a classmate who died at the Pentagon. She died serving our country. And I'm thankful so much for all those that have served, you know, for our country, for our freedom. And, our freedom of speech is in danger. That's what I like about, YouTube. One of the things I like about YouTube is you do have freedom of speech. But service. Why am I here? Why are you here? We're here to love God and to love each other. And one of the ways that we show that we love each other and the way we show we love God is to serve one another. Serve one another in love. Well, what does service mean? What does service mean? Well, when you go to a restaurant, you want to be served. In other words, when you go to a restaurant, they have what you need. You don't have it, they do. And that's true in life, that there's people out there that you have something that they don't. Whether it's a hug, a jacket, a word of wisdom, a word of encouragement. It could be money. It could be so many different things. Fill in the blank. But there's just unlimited ways that you and I could serve one another by love. But as a whole, we're not loving each other. And back to what I said about the cliff note of the Bible is just love God and love each other. And that's where we're failing as a whole. We're not loving God, and because we're not loving God, we're not loving each other. But like I said, we can't control what the world does, but you can bring it to your doorstep, and I can bring it to my doorstep and say, did I love God today? And did I love my fellow man, my fellow woman, my neighbor? So that's something to take inventory tonight. When I lay down tonight, did I do my best to love God and love each other? Because that's the purpose of life, is loving God and loving each other. All right, I think I've got everything off my chest that I wanted to say. I got one Bible trivia card I'll share if anybody's interested. 6 Bible trivia questions. But I just want to remind everybody that if you're sighing today, or if you've sighed recently, you're not alone. You're not alone in your sighs. But I want you to know that you can look up during your sighs to a God that He too sighed while He was down here. He knows things aren't going as they should, but He knows also that He's all powerful. And I hope we know it. We know it as well. Hello to Cover by CQ. Chris, I appreciate you stopping by. I hope you're doing well. What time is it in your neck of the woods, CQ? I know probably. I'm trying to remember. You probably after midnight by now. 1:39. Yeah, I figured that after at midnight. So hello to the future. Happy Friday, uh, September the 12th to you. Everybody say hello to Chris, covered by CQ. He's a singer. If y'all have never checked him out, check him out. He likes to sing. I like to listen to him. He sings Elvis a lot. I like to hear Elvis songs. He sings other people as well, but yeah, I've been rowdy. I've been sighing so much, um, but that's what I love. One of the many things I love about turning to God's Word is there's a song that says Jesus is right for whatever's wrong in your life, and that's what I realize whenever I'm sighing. I just have to look up to the God that too sighed just like me. That Jesus, when He came down to this earth, He was God, but He was also man. He was God with skin on, and He went through the same stuff that we're going through. And there's things that caused Him to sigh, things that weren't going as they should, and we experienced those same things. But God help us to do our best to make things go as they should with our lives, to love God like we should, to love each other like we should. I appreciate you subscribing, Adventure America. CQ is a great guy. Like I said, he likes to sing. I like to sing. I'm trying to find one trivia card here. Like I said, 6 questions, Bible trivia. All right, question number one. Bible trivia question number one. Hello to the good news. Hello to John P. I don't know if I mentioned John P. Sometimes I forget. But Bible trivia question number one. Who was the cousin of Mordecai who became a queen? Who was the cousin of Mordecai who became a queen? Joanne's leaving. Good night, Joanne. I appreciate you stopping by. Always appreciate anybody that stops by, regardless of the time. Ever how long you can stay. I'm very much appreciative. Always enjoy talking to people from around the world. We're going through this life together at the same time, and just want to encourage you along as you go through this life, as we go through this life together. Who was the cousin of Mordecai who became a queen? And the good news says Esther. And I just dropped my stuff. According to the book of Esther, I was starting to give hints, but if I'd have gave a hint of where it was at in the Bible, I would have gave away the answer. Because it's found in Esther chapter 2, verses 15 through 17, and the answer is Esther. So far, we as a team are 1 for 1. Good job. We got by with a little help from our friend, the good news. Had the right answer, thank you. Question number 2, I got 6. Here's question number 2. Out of who did Jesus cast 7 evil spirits? Out of who did Jesus cast out 7 evil spirits? I'm looking forward to fall/winter for a lot of reasons, but one of the main reasons is I like it when there's a minority of mosquitoes. Because right now these bad boys are about to carry me off. If I disappear all of a sudden, it might have been the mosquitoes. We have the good news says Mary Magdalene. And Ken C says Mary Magdalene. And Jay Thompson says 7-0 Packers. But according to Luke chapter 8, verse 2, yeah, I knew what you meant, good news. According to Luke chapter 8, verse 2, it is Mary Magdalene is the right answer. So go team. Our team is 2-0. Question number 3. Hey, and if y'all don't know the answers, that's fine. I'm good with that. But the thing that I want us to do is if we didn't know it, listen and learn. And then next time if somebody asks you, it may be me or it may be somebody else, but if somebody else asks you the same question, you'll be ready. You know, it's a learning opportunity. You know, that was one of the, things I was talking about is God opened my ears that I may listen, I may learn. You know, that's how you learn is by listening. You don't learn by talking. Like right now, talking, I'm not learning nothing. But when I listen, that's where all the learning takes place in listening. So the importance of listening to God. I'm not God, but I'm talking about His Word. So if we listen to somebody that's speaking God's Word, you're listening in a sense to God through His Word, and it's a learning opportunity. Um, Number 3, question number 3. In the armor of God. All right. So in the book of Galatians, it talks about. Not Galatians. In the book of Ephesians. The book of Ephesians, it talks about the whole armor of God. And in the armor of God, what is the helmet? So the whole armor of God, it mentions the helmet. What is the helmet? All right, so Jay Thompson was talking about football helmets. I mean, he wasn't talking about football helmets, but he was talking about football. But we know if you've ever watched football, the purpose of them wearing the helmet is to protect their mind, their head. All right, well, God is the same way with us. He wants us to protect our mind, guard our heads, because everybody that's talking on this earth, all right, is teaching something. And there's things that are good for you to hear, and there's things that are bad for you to hear. And sometimes I miss people's answers, so if I skipped your right answer, I'm sorry. But I do see the right answer. Rocky Mountain Way says the helmet of salvation, which is so right. We all need the helmet of salvation. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 17. Protection from deception. That's right. And think about salvation. Think about pretty much every religion talks about salvation in some way, shape, or form. But there's only one way of salvation. Question number 4. And I dropped my card again. We're experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand or sit by. Where did Moses see the burning bush? Where did Moses see the burning bush? Man, I love that story. The story of Moses and the burning bush. I remember learning that as a kid early on, and just a beautiful picture in the Bible. But where did he see the burning bush? And you can find this in Exodus chapter 3, verses 1 and 2. If you don't already know it, that's fine, but you can look it up if you got a Bible nearby. It's in Exodus chapter 3, verses 1 and 2. But I love that story. If you've ever if your mama ever said when you were a kid, if your mama ever said your first name but also threw in your middle name, you knew you were in trouble, right? And you also knew that she was saying something to get your attention. And there, God is getting Moses' attention. God is putting Moses through 40 years of training. From the time Moses is 40 years old to the time Moses is 80 years old, God is training him to lead. He's training to lead animals for, he's a shepherd for 40 years, but during those years he's training to how to lead people for the next 40 years. But he got his attention there with a burning bush, and he says, Moses, Moses. He repeats his name, Moses, Moses. He's getting his attention by his voice, but also by the burning bush. But I love that he tells Moses, he says, take your shoes off because you're standing on holy ground. And that's the first time that the word holy is used in the Bible. But that's a theme throughout the Bible, the holiness of God. That God is holy and we're not. It's a reminder that, back to what I was saying, we need help when it comes to getting to heaven. We can't do it on our own. But we need a holy God to get us there through the blood of Christ. Mount Horeb, Horeb. I don't think I've seen anybody say it unless my chat's froze up. Horeb, Horeb, according to Exodus chapter 3, verses 1 and 2. Question number 5. How old was Jesus when he was baptized and began his ministry? How old was Jesus when he was baptized and began his ministry? You're super close with 29. Which I guess it could be 29 or 30 because Luke chapter 3 verses 21 through 23 says about 30. So 29 is about 30, but I always just said 30. But according to Luke 3 21 through 23, it says about 30 years old. And we know his public ministry on this earth was for 3 years. So from the time he was 30 to 33 is when he done all the miracles and he done the things in the Gospels. He died on the cross, he rose again between 30 and 33. Last question. Which book in the Old Testament is a love story and song? Which book in the Old Testament is a love story and song? I would say this is one of probably the lesser read books of the Bible. I don't hear a lot of people reading from this book of the Bible, but it's just as important as any other. And I love me some love songs, and this is a love story, love song. Just Roy Delivery with the right answer. The Song of Solomon. Hello to California Dreaming, who came in saying Solomon. The Song of Solomon, that's right. I hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a great Thursday. Every time I see your name, I have to sing the song. I don't have to, but it's hard not to. I just turned it into my own version of it, Alabama Dreaming. All the leaves are brown. Well, not really. Although the leaves are starting to turn brown, if y'all have noticed, we're approaching the fall season. Um, so I've been hearing the acorns fall. The leaves are turning colors. Very fun to admire the change of seasons. I was talking about the hummingbirds migrating, you know, starting to head south. Maybe the mosquitoes will do that. Do mosquitoes fly south for the winter, or where do mosquitoes go? I'm not a scientist. I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express. But the good part, like I said, we talked about a mixed emotions. The good side of today, what I think about is, like I said already, those that have served. Thankful for all those that have served. And we're all called to serve in different kinds of ways. Like I talked about, God open doors for service, for us. But the greatest service that's ever been done is what Jesus done on the cross, and because of that, we've been given a freedom. Um, and I like this verse. It says, "So if the Son sets you free, you will be free." I love that word, indeed. Indeed. Exclamation point. John chapter 8:36. But I love the old hymn song, "He Set Me Free." So that too is, mixed emotions. If you realize, what Jesus went through, the punishment he took for me and for you, that ought to cause us to get some mixed emotions. The very, the bad emotions of crying, being sad because of the punishment that he took that he didn't deserve. But then the good, like one of my favorite verses is Romans 8:28. We know that all things work together for good to them that love the Lord, to them that are called according to his purpose, working together for good. So it was bad for Jesus, the pain and torture that he went through. It was a Black Friday for him. It was dark, but for us, because of what he'd done, it ought to bring us, also joy in salvation. You know, the good that came out of that. It was bad for him, but it was good for us if we've accepted the gift of salvation, the gift of grace, the gift of God's goodness. But man, we surely mess things up, but man, he makes things right if we'll accept it. But that was pretty much the main thing on my heart today is if you're sighing about anything, and you probably are at some point, just know you're not alone. And one of my advices to give to anybody that's sighing is just to look up to heaven, look up to the God that can do something about it. Oh, I just now seen the K and Mac project says you are Southbury, and this is true. But there is a souther than me, believe it or not. Um, Florida. I'll happily send my mosquitoes to Florida. Or hey, I can see how many mosquitoes will fit in a plain white envelope and ship it to your address if you're interested. But I guess mosquitoes would fall under things that make me sigh. Not a fan of the mosquito. And like I said, I'm not a scientist. I already talked about this. I'm not a scientist, but I've heard, and this ain't, I'm not knocking the opposite sex, but I've heard that only the female mosquitoes bite. Why is that? Fran coming laughing. See, that wasn't an attack on females, Fran. I promise. I just have an inquiring mind. If that's true, I don't know if it's true or not. I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, but I'm not a doctor. Um, but if that's true that only the females buy it, why is that? Yeah, yeah. You still rest in your voice, friend. Don't. Um, Hello to Cooking with the Munchie Mafia official. Sylvia, I appreciate you stopping by. Did you have any mosquitoes biting on you when you was fishing, Troy, or is that is that my problem? Too much wind. So that's one of the secrets to. I mean, I know the cold weather keeps them away, so I'm gonna start like walking around with a fan. I'm gonna attach some kind of fan on me then, if wind keeps them off. I know people are probably gonna laugh at me, but if I'm mosquito free, then the joke's on you. Well, I know mosquitoes love water, but I guess they don't like salt water. Huh? Garlic not only will keep mosquitoes off of you, it'll keep anybody off of you. That's what I always say that garlic is good. You know, good for everything except for your breath. I love garlic on a lot of stuff, but it's not good for your breath. So y'all giving me all kind of ideas. Which I know I don't show my face, but maybe the day that I do, I'll be wearing like a fan, some felt, uh, with garlic breath, with all these clues y'all giving me to the key to having a mosquito-free life. Belt dryer sheets. Man, I do have a pen. Which it's dark, but I need to take some notes. Yeah, I'm back to the little small handheld tonight. I don't have Todd's flashlight, just a handheld. I hear an owl. I don't know if y'all can hear him or not. An owl is hooting, which I don't usually hear him at this time. Mosquitoes don't like puppet blood. um, so I'm gonna insinuate that Troy believes that puppets are living beings. Yeah, mosquitoes love my blood for sure. You know, you've heard people. Some people brag. They say that they're a babe magnet. I'm a mosquito magnet. That's probably not a cool term, but just call me M&M, the mosquito magnet. All right, Ken C, I appreciate you stopping by. Hope you have a great Thursday remainder. Oh yeah, yeah. Don't tell nobody, Troy. I think that's bees that are attracted to honey, right? Or sweet things. I remember since I said that, I remember one time me and my brother we was on lunch break at school. Me and my brother, and we had a little porch on the outside of the gymnasium, basketball gymnasium, and we would go outside and talk with our friends during lunch break, and we usually got like a soft drink or ate a sandwich or something. But anyhow, I remember my brother he was drinking a soft drink, and the bees like the sweet stuff, like I said, and somehow that bee had got down into my brother's drink can. So he sipped on a bee, and that bee stung him on his tongue. It's not funny, but it is. You don't ever like when somebody, or you shouldn't like when people hurt. That wasn't funny that he got hurt, but just the that just brought back a memory. You was talking about sweet sweet things. This is the portion of the program where Barry gets bit by a dog. Please stay tuned. Walla Walla. All right, everybody, this is the portion of the program where we all take a moment and all say, all right, y'all have heard of synchronized swimming, right? But I ain't got no water nearby, so we're not going to do synchronized swimming, but we are going to do synchronized saying. And today's word is Walla Walla. So on the count of three, say it as loud as you can. I don't care who your neighbor is, who's in the room with you, whatever, fill in the blank. On the count of three, everybody's got to say Walla Walla. Say it with emphasis, with the exclamation point. Say it like you mean it. 1, 2, 3. I didn't hear y'all. I didn't say type it, guys. I didn't say text it or whatever you want to call it. I said say it. I've been talking about verbal and nonverbal communication. All right, y'all doing the nonverbal. Let your neighbor know about Walla Walla. It makes you feel better. It does me. If Maybe when the next time I side, that'll be another one of the things I can do is just say Walla Walla. Walla Walla. Not to be confused with who was that? Fozzie the Bear. Waka Waka Waka. All right. This is the portion of the walk where we talk about the top four things. All right, the Mount Rushmore of different things. What is your top four Muppet characters? Since Just Roy's up in here, your top four Muppet characters. Troy, Troy, I'm a Southerner, man. That word is way too big. What are your top four Muppets, or if you call it puppet? What is the difference between? Maybe I need to ask Roy this. What is the difference between a Muppet and a puppet? Are they the same thing, or is there something that differentiates the two? And then I know some people call them dummies, but that may be offensive. But I believe you can learn a lot from a dummy. Oh yeah, you hit three out of my favorite four, Fran. Statler and Waldorf are definitely my top two. I mean, they're like so far ahead of everybody else. I was just kicking around my number four though. I'm with you though. Statler and Waldorf and Animal. I don't have Miss Piggy as my number four. Um, Once again, that's no shot at females. That's nothing to do with females. um, I know there may be people out there that's trying to put two and two together and say, hey, he's talking about mosquitoes and Miss Piggy. All right, Rowdy, I appreciate you stopping by. The Swedish Chef, that's a great one. Beaker, oh yeah, like some Beaker. Animal, Kermit the Frog. Y'all know what Kermit the Frog says? Time's fun when you're having flies. Yeah, Swedish. Schmurdy Verdi. Schmurdy Verdi. Toaster strudel with toaster. I don't know. I can't. Let's see. Beaker, Scooter, Gonzo, and the old heckler guys. Yeah, Statler and Waldorf. I love them because they were always laughing. I guess that was my favorite part about them. The way they laughed and that they were the fact that they were laughing. Yeah, I used to watch Fraggle Rock. Matter of fact, we used to for PE. Now, maybe this is why sometimes I could blame my not being the most in shape on is when we're in PE in school. They used to show us Fraggle Rock at PE. Go figure. Yeah, the Muppets were founded by Jim Henson. That's right. All right, Jeff wants to know what were the little workers called? What were the little workers called? Elves? No, that's Santa. The little workers. See, I was waiting for somebody to say that Adventure America. JRD says, "Oh yeah." Did Calvin stump the audience, the little workers? Oh yeah. I always liked Grover on Sesame Street when he would go, um, "This is near," and then he'd run away and say, "This is far." Doozers. I need to refresh. I got some old tape somewhere. I have to refresh my knock some dust off of my brain cells. Dun, 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 dun. It's time for Fraggle Rock. I'm trying to refresh myself on the theme song. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, I got to take off too, but I appreciate you stopping by, Sock, and I appreciate everybody that stopped by today. It means a lot. Like I said, regardless of the time you can spend, much obliged. I just want to remind everybody, if you're sighing about anything, you're not alone. It's part of life, but um, just look up. Keep the faith. Don't give up, and love God and love each other. And I just want to remind everybody that I love everybody, that I don't hate anybody, and it's all because of somebody who died for me. But good night, God bless. I hope y'all have an excellent Thursday remainder, and pray that the Lord will bless you with good night's rest. But hope to see y'all again somewhere down the road.